Good morning and welcome to Choir Leader in a Kayak. This is episode number 20 and yet again I'm not in a kayak but I am by the river and it's absolutely gorgeous. The sun is shining, the sky is very, very blue and I'm really happy to be here. As you can see, I've got my little daffodil on. It was St David's Day this past weekend and as a half Welsh woman it's only right that I should wear my daffodil with pride. So how have you been? I hope you've had a really lovely week. This week's episode is all about feedback. And feedback comes in many forms, doesn't it? We were in a competition last week, as many of you may know if you watched last week's episode, and we didn't come first, we came second. I was really proud of the ensemble. They made such an amazing sound, and the feedback that we received was very helpful and very useful, and we were told we had very good endings. Well, I'd like to tell the choir that I think they had very good beginnings and middles as well, but the feedback was useful and it was done in a very caring way. I would have quite liked a little bit more to work on, but I genuinely believe that the adjudicator perhaps did struggle around her final decision, and final decisions are sometimes things that we often struggle with. The other bit of feedback this week that I've been working on I've been working with a sound engineer, and he's been teaching me how best to set up my system for microphones and a monitor and a reverb unit for use when I'm performing with my vocal trio. It's really difficult to get sound right. I've learned this past year that the art of acoustics is very complex, and hats off to anybody who works in that industry for making the musicians sound tip-top and for giving the audience an amazing experience. So thanks again, Paul, for all your work this week. So I had to learn many complex things, lots of wires going into amps and into monitors and into mixing desks and into instruments and into microphones, and I felt a bit like my brain would explode. But that's probably what it's like for our brains all the time, isn't it? We are constantly receiving feedback and having to make decisions based on that feedback. Indeed, I think we make something like 30,000 decisions a day. That's huge. No wonder we feel exhausted a lot of the time. But feedback is vitally important. We need to take feedback, maybe we'll call it criticism from other people, to allow us to make improvements and to help us build resilience and ultimately build confidence. If we give feedback at a time when somebody's feeling very low or very vulnerable, that's not going to help that person's confidence, is it? And I think that's a really difficult decision to make sometimes. People have often suggested to me that I'm a remarkably confident person and that I probably don't worry about anything. And I'd like to let you know now that that's not really the case. I've had to work very hard on my own personal anxiety, and indeed it's taken me a long time, and I continue to ask for feedback, notice my own feedback in my gut and in how I feel about situations, so that I can continue to build my confidence, because I'm not a naturally confident person. So if I can do it, I think there's hope for us all. The other feedback that we often get is that inner critic, isn't it? That person who tells us in our mind that we can't do things, or that they didn't like how we looked, or I sound awful. I took a lesson this week from somebody who had no real idea of just how amazing their voice is. And it was a real pleasure for me to take somebody from a point of very low confidence in their own abilities to a completely different place, to a place of enjoyment of their own voice. I've also been teaching people this week and trying to give them lots of technique and lots of ideas around how to change the sound, to make them more confident within a phrase that's perhaps difficult or providing a bit of a challenge. And again, that's difficult because if I give too much information, then I change lots of other things about the sound. The person becomes so what's the word I'm looking for? Focused on this new technique I've given them, that it's playing into other elements of their body, which is then not helping their confidence. So, confidence and critiquing and feedback, it's a really fine balance. So that is today's episode. It is all about feedback, our own feedback, the feedback of others, and finding those kind people who can give us the feedback that we need to hear in the most loving way, because we are our own harshest critics, and we do want to make sure that we can build confidence and we can watch that confidence blossom as people get older and they change and life throws us new challenges, that we can still move forward and sometimes ignore that voice inside our heads that says we can't do things, and believe people when they suggest that we can, or indeed we just take those small steps towards a more confident person, a person who feels that they're happy to take the feedback and sometimes ignore it and sometimes move forwards with it. Have a really lovely week. Lots and lots of love, and thanks for watching. Mwah.